ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the right time. My name is Bomani Jones. Thanks for joining us on the ESPN app, Apple Podcast, wherever it is that you get this fine product. We appreciate having you guys here. What's going on with the Thunder? We will talk about that one. We will also talk about LeBron and whether his heart's going to explode trying to carry this team. But first, all right, Sixers-Celtics. At the time of this recording, the game was last night. The Celtics smoked the Sixers in that game, which I got to say was a bit surprising. I think the thought that you would have in a series like that is that if you're coming off playing 7, then there's a good chance you're going to get smoked the next go round. We saw that happen to Utah in that series, but also just as we saw happen to New Orleans, where, okay, you guys are good and rested, and then you come up to play your game on the road. They got beat down by the Celtics. The thing about the Celtics is Jaylen Brown hurt for that game. Kyrie Irving been out. Gordon Hayward, of course, hadn't touched the wood since the first game of the year. Nothing seems to change. They won 55 games with a roster that I think that we would admit does not look like a 55-game roster, and the East is a lot better than it has been, so you can't even really attribute it to the fact that they played in a weak conference. They got out here against the Sixers, and what the Sixers have is high-end talent that I think that we would agree that the Celtics don't have. As good as Jason Tatum is and as good as he's been as a rookie, we don't think Jason Tatum is as good as Ben Simmons. We don't think Jason Tatum is as good as Joel Embiid. Al Horford's a really good player, but he's not on the high end of talent in the way that Joel Embiid is. So this to me seemed like, okay, well, we'll see what goes on with the Sixers in this series. I think this is one that they could probably win in 7. And then Brad Stevens was like, nah, man, I do magic. Yeah, that's me, man. I do magic. He's basically like, watch this. I'm going to take my team and I'm going to saw it in half, but watch me put it right back together. That is him. He is that level of magician. And they went out there and they got that done, and we got out of that game, by the way, what I would hope for in all these games, which is the Marcus Smart versus Ben Simmons dust up. It was definitely short of a brouhaha. It did not reach the point of a kerfuffle, but it was definitely a dust-up. Now, you could reasonably expect that Ben Simmons is going to wind up in some sort of dust-up situation because, hey, man, there seem to be a lot of dudes in the NBA that would love nothing more than to fight Ben Simmons. Remember that time that Kyle Lowry told him that he wanted to see him in the tunnel? Like, between Simmons and Embiid, those are two cats that other dudes in the league seem like, you know what? I'd love to punch that dude in the face. That's where they are. Look, man, they're young dudes. They got a whole lot to say and are not deferential in any way whatsoever. Those are those squads. But hey, man, think about this for a second. This is Sixers-Celtics. Having Sixers-Celtics has put us in a situation where we are getting a lot of clips and videos and pictures of old Sixers-Celtics games. So I've seen the picture of Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell getting their Sixers-Celtics on. That's cool. But the one that we love watching more than any other, Larry Bird versus Dr. J and Moses Malone and Charles Barkley in an exhibition game. Can you imagine being Dr. J? Like, by that time, Larry Bird was established as being that dude. Like, let's be clear about that. By then, Larry Bird was absolutely that dude in the league. That was still Dr. J. Like, you imagine being Dr. J? I started this gangster stuff. I'm the reason that any of this exists in the first place. Dr. J got Bird by the throat. Bird got Dr. J by the throat. Charles Barkley comes up, a rookie Charles Barkley, by the way, comes up, gets Larry Bird on one side. Mo Malone gets Larry Bird on the other. Dr. J is trying to jab Larry Bird under those circumstances. Then they wind up bringing Larry Bird to the ground. And then Moses Malone is on top of Larry Bird, apparently trying to fight with him. They break it up a little bit. Mo Malone is standing out there ready to scrap it out with somebody else. And it dawns on me when I saw that, and I thought about this before, but it really hit me in that moment. We have an entire generation now of NBA fans who have never seen their favorite NBA player get into a fight. Forget about just a fight. How about throwing a blow of any sort? Like, Vince Carter came into the league in 1998. Only time I seen Vince Carter throw a blow was actually 3 years ago, I believe. 3 or 4, when he elbowed Steven Adams in the head because he'd had enough of that Steven Adams thing. That's where we are in this one. And we know these cats are never going to fight because the league has made it clear that they're going to shut the whole thing down if they fight. It's not a matter of NBA cats can't fight or NBA cats don't want to fight. It is that NBA cats realize that they probably should not be fighting. Like, you honestly believe that Marcus Smart is just opposed to fighting? You think Marcus Smart is afraid to fight? Do you think that Terry Rozier has a problem with fighting? Check this. I learned over the weekend that Terry Rozier is a native of Youngstown, Ohio. Now, he grew up around Cleveland, but hold on. Terry Rozier is a native of Youngstown, Ohio. Terry Rozier out there with them purple black lips, with them tattoos all over his neck, and he is born in Youngstown, Ohio. What about that tells you that dude is not trying to fight? You let me know. Because I myself personally don't see anything in there to indicate that Terry Rozier has any problem with fighting whatsoever. The league simply does not allow you to fight. But Terry Rozier did say, my buddy said he did a podcast with Rozier, and Rozier said something about, they were talking about Marcus Smart and getting into scraps, and he's like, oh, as long as I'm on the team, Marcus don't have to worry about fighting. Here for it. Totally here for it. Tell you what else I'm here for too. I'm here for a day where people don't lose their minds about fighting. Like, we know the chain of events that changed the way the NBA looked at fighting. We had the fight between the Knicks and the Suns. I believe that was in 1993, where Greg Anthony ran off the bench in the party shirt and was out there fighting. It was Doc Rivers and Kevin Johnson and everything that went there. And that's when they were like, okay, we can't really have these guys so much coming off the bench. There was Derek Fisher and JoJo English in the 1994 playoffs. Their fight went into the front row right in front of David Stern, and he's like, oh, no, we can't have that one. And then, of course, there was the malice at the Palace, and you know all the suspensions that everybody got from that. Ron Artest got 73 games. I think Stephen Jackson got about a dub. Jermaine O'Neal got about a dub. And then after that, it was that fight with Melo and J.R. Smith and Marty Collins and Jerry Jeffries and Nate Robinson and all those dudes that did not actually turn into a fight, but cats are still out there getting 20-game suspensions. And that was when the NBA decided, no, we don't want this. We don't need this. We can't have this. But you stop and think. The only NBA player of any real stardom that I can think of from like the 80s who I can't think of ever get into a fight was Magic Johnson. That's it. Seeing Michael Jordan get into a fight. Michael Jordan got into a fight with Reggie Miller one time. Isaiah Thomas, he played for the Pistons. Larry Bird, we just described that fight for you. Hell, Robert Parrish. Robert Parrish beat Lambeer up with Lambeer's back turned. And by the way, when these cats would have these fights, maybe a bit technical or whatever it is, but they just line it back up and get back out there to play. You know how great this series would be if we could get an outer weight class battle between Terry Rozier and Ben Simmons? Find out if Australia really gets down rough, rugged in the outback like they say they do. Do you realize how glorious it would be if we had a situation where Rozier and Marcus Smart decided they wanted to fight a handicap match against Joel Embiid? Embiid got y'all convinced that he once beat up a lion because y'all just believe anything about Africa. Two of them against each other? Hey, man. We could make this happen. Like, if I could come on this podcast every week and break down the fights in the playoffs rather than discuss, the basketball itself, I myself personally feel like that would be a victory for all parties involved. But here's the thing with Marcus Smart and Ben Simmons. How long you think it's going to be before Marcus Smart just gets all the way under Ben Simmons' skin? Because look, in the end, man, for Simmons, this is the first time he's been here. Like, this is still a thing. He is incredibly confident and very little seems to bother Simmons. But this is still new. This is still different for all of these guys. There's still a level of tension that's going to come from being there. Marcus Smart been on a squad that's been here before, and Marcus Smart leaves the house every day wondering, man, I wonder how I can get on somebody's nerves today. What do I have to do to get on somebody's nerves? What is it that I can pull off? I feel better about Marcus Smart now that he doesn't have that ridiculous hairdo. Like, you remember that when he was trying to do the little fake mohawk thing that the kids are doing, except he had to dye it to some kind of funny color. I find that I dislike Marcus Smart as a basketball player way more with that haircut than I do right now. Right now, he looks like he's comporting himself with a little bit more dignity and poise with his follicular decisions. And therefore, I don't find it to be such a problem. Except I just hate his game, right? Like, it's a whole lot of, I'm just going to get in your way. It's a whole lot of, I'm just going to muscle you around. Like, I bet it's great to have Marcus Smart on your team. Like, I totally understand why it is that the Celtics fans would probably love that dude. He has a lot of characteristics of the fan favorite, except that one. But, hey, man, He's here to do things like guard guys like Ben Simmons to get under their skin. And by the way, credit to Marcus Smart when you consider the fact there's a Draymond Green element to him in that he's not that tall, but he's like, dude, I'll go out here and guard anybody. And the way that I'm going to go out here and guard anybody is want to. Like, I feel like Draymond's got some want to along with a whole lot of technique. I feel like Marcus Smart is just overpowering you with want to. And what the Celtics are going to bring in this series, if nothing else, is a whole lot of want to. We're going to find out what the want to is with the Sixers. Because what we know about these cats, especially like with young dudes, they're great at front running. And I'm not saying this like as shade. I'm just saying that when things are good for them young dudes, they're here for it. When things kind of like aren't going so well necessarily, we're talking about something different here. And yeah, the Sixers did well in the second half of those games against the Heat, but I think they were looking at the Heat and that's like, okay, well, that's a squad we got. Like, we got more talent than those dudes. We can go ahead and make this happen. You're dealing with something different here when you're talking about the Celtics. And the top line talent of the Celtics, like Jaylen Brown, I don't think Jaylen Brown's going to be, I mean, if he comes back this series, it would not shock me, but it would surprise me. Because you don't see dudes grab their hamstrings like he did and then come back and play anytime soon. Hamstring injuries are tricky in that way. But Jason Tatum is high-end talent. Al Horford is high-end talent. Not high-end as talent as Embiid, but high-end talent plus some experience that Embiid does not have. Terry Rozier is a level of high-end talent. Like, they've got players. They've got dudes who can guard. And one thing about the Sixers that we cannot lose sight of, they're bringing a lot of dudes in and out off the bench, like Bellinelli, Ilyasova. Who are they supposed to guard? That right there is part of where this is going to get wonky for the Sixers. Is they got some guys out there who I don't think can guard the players that Brad Stevens is going to put in front of them. They don't. And then on the other end, they got the Celtics, where even if some of them dudes, even if they can't guard them, hey man, you get 6 fouls for a reason, baby. You get 6 fouls for a reason. And 2 technicals, just in case you guys want to shove each other around a little bit. Also, by the way, in the wonderful, delightful Eastern Conference, we have LeBron James. And, I mean, they're the Pips at this point, right? The other dudes that happen to be on the team, is it fair that we can go ahead and call them the Pips? Like, this isn't even a matter of I'm David Ruffin and they're the Temptations. This isn't that. This ain't Quavo and the Migos. No. This is LeBron James and a bunch of Pips. I'm not going to call them Pip Squeaks because I feel like that would be a little bit disrespectful. But no, it's a lot of Pips here. Like, let's look at the box score for Game 7. LeBron put up 45. Tristan Thompson jumped up off the couch, gave him 15. Kevin Love still can't really do anything for you. After that, man, what does this say if you're the Cavs and you're like, man, really glad we got that 11 out of George Hill. Like, hey, that was a big thing. You want to talk about LeBron wearing down or the possibility? LeBron 16-25 from the field, but you know they were -2 with him on the floor? Like -2. They got outscored by 2 points with LeBron being on the floor. And when he's out there, for those of us who remember what it was like when LeBron was playing with the Cavs from 2007 to 2010, the difference between now and then, though, is then I feel like LeBron and his I make the smart basketball play thing overrode everything else. Now LeBron is looking at those dudes and like, okay, well, I guess I got to be the one to do this. You do. Just to be clear, Bron, you do have to be the one to do this. You have to be the one to make all the shots. You have to be the one to make all the passes. Maybe you'll get lucky and Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson to do some work on the glass. Because otherwise, you have to be the guy to do that too. Like, seriously, look at this from LeBron. 45 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 4 steals. You have to be the guy to do everything. And then you see him after the game. They're talking about what he tried to give him IV at halftime for the cramps. He would not take the IV. He's sitting on at the podium after the game, and he's talking about how he was burnt. And of course he'd be burnt. He just got through playing 43 minutes of an NBA playoff game. We had to score 45 points and carry the whole team. But he is turning into John Henry now in this situation. Like, is he going to grind until his heart explodes? How much more are we to reasonably expect that the Cavs can get out of LeBron? Because now they're going in this series up against the Raptors. None of us trust the Raptors. And none of us trust the Raptors because the Raptors have given us years to believe that they are untrustworthy, although that seems like an unfair characterization to make of a team that we have actually seen make it to the conference finals. But think about the 7-game series that the Cavs played against the Pacers. The Pacers outscored the Cavs in that series by 40 points. 40 points. That meant basically the Cavs got a 41-point bonus simply by having LeBron James. That's what that was. So Toronto and Cleveland are going to play on Tuesday night. If you had to guess, you would say that Toronto is going to smoke them. Just because you figured that Cleveland was so spent, they got to take a trip right after that. My guess is that they would get smoked. That's where I think that is going to go now. They're going to get beat. That's not going to be that much of an indicator of what's going to happen in the rest of the series. But how many points a game is LeBron going to have to score? Like, serious question. Because if it took 45 in the games that it took in order to beat Indiana, what's it going to take to beat a team that I think we would all agree is better in Toronto? And Toronto got some length, too. They got a whole bunch of dudes from a whole bunch of countries who you may not have heard of because they play for Toronto and we don't really watch their games on television like that. What's LeBron got to do? Like, can we reasonably expect him to go through another series, putting up 40 pieces in order for the Cavs to win? Like, at what point are we saying we have asked LeBron to do too much? That is where the Cavs are going to be. The problem for them is they're only going to find out they asked him for too much after the fact, because they got to keep asking. Who else are they going to ask? Hey, Kev, just wondering, LeBron's a little tired today. Just thinking maybe that you could, carry the team on your back a little while. I mean, aside from the fact that he got a busted up hand, he's Kevin Love. That's not really that's not the job that he does. But poor LeBron, I don't know if poor LeBron's the right way to put it because he damn sure ain't Poe. But you understand what I'm saying here. He could carry this team in these ways. And if they lose in the second round, all he's going to hear is, Mike never lost in the second round. Well, I mean, he did, but it was after, and yeah. But for LeBron, the championship or bust no matter what. For the Cavs, kinda. But for LeBron, it is always championship or bust. Get ready for the world to catch on fire, just in case they lose in the second round to the team from Canada. All right, Oklahoma City Thunder out of there. Utah Jazz made it to the second round against the Rockets. Probably got smoked in the first game, but that's reasonable to expect coming off a 6-game series and having played 2 days prior. Very interesting, of course, is the way we handle the Thunder whenever they lose and whenever the Thunder lose. You know how we handle it. It's all Russ's fault. Everything it's all Russell Westbrook's fault. Now, I watched that game on Friday night. Russell Westbrook took 43 shots. Now, I think that the more measured observers among us looked at that performance and they said, a lot of them, you're seeing the best of Russell Westbrook, and the best was that third quarter where he was just on fire. And you saw the worst of Russell Westbrook, which is the fourth quarter where he couldn't make a shot, but that didn't stop him from taking them. And then they lose and everything is, well, you can never win anything with Russell Westbrook. Now, keep in mind that anytime that Thunder team, as it was constructed before Kevin Durant and Ibaka left, if they had all three of those guys, if they were healthy and playing, they got to the conference finals at the very least every time. Every time. But we're going to make this argument that you can't win anything with Russell Westbrook. We watch in those early years where everything got blamed on Russ. By the way, Derrick Rose got an MVP in 2011, putting up the same numbers as Russell Westbrook did. But all we talked about at that time was how Russell Westbrook was the guy who messed everything up. We stood there and watched Russ bang the ball at the top of the circle, waiting on people to run action and make moves and somebody to get open, and Scott Brooks awful sets and nobody does it. Then Russ goes to the basket and he winds up being the one who gets blamed. In this series, or in that game 6, if you watched it, man, these dudes are just coming down there and staying still. Nobody's moving. Nobody's going anywhere. And they wound up in a terrible situation, at least in terms of matchup, because Russ is going to the basket and then there's giant Rudy Gobert right there. Big part of why giant Rudy Gobert is there, because Steven Adams, though he is a very good basketball player, can't space things out at all. Can't spread the floor. So he's the one who was waiting there. Russ can't pass up a mid-range. You leave him open, he's going to shoot. And that's his biggest problem, is that he can't, gotta keep him honest. Gotta keep him honest. He's that guy. But I watched him take those 43 shots. Keep in mind, that's 43 shots in a game where Melo and Paul George made 5 shots combined. That's a game where Paul George was 2 for 16 from the floor. That was a game where at the end, when it was a time to get a big shot, the Thunder made the calls for Paul George, and Paul George could not get the shot, though I did think Rudy Gobert fouled him on the one at the end. But everything is about Russell Westbrook. Come on, man. What they've got going in Oklahoma City is a collective failure. All right, how that went this year certainly was a collective failure. I don't think Billy Donovan's done a great job with maximizing the talent that they had. Paul George was kind of here and there and figuring out what to do with it. And in this series, when they won, Paul George was great. When they did not, Paul George was not great. But if you watch that fourth quarter of Oklahoma City, Utah, it was fair to ask the question, even when Russ was taking bad shots, how much better of a shot do you think they were going to get if they kept that thing running? Like, really, how much better of a shot do you think they were going to get? This wasn't a matter of, like, Westbrook being surrounded by people or being quadruple teamed or refusing to pass the ball to anybody. This wasn't that. So how, like, what do you think would have made that go differently? Or what do you think it is that would have made that go better? Now, I think that for the Thunder, losing Andre Robinson, a.k.a. Self-Check. And yeah, I know it's a tricky thing with Robinson because we got so many jokes about his offense, but then it was clear that they could have used him, that they needed him. If for no other reason than watching Donovan Mitchell go off, maybe having your best defensive player would be a thing that you'd want to have as you watch Donovan Mitchell go off. Maybe that would be it. But if they had Robertson, they would be a much better defensive team. If they were a much better defensive team, then, I mean, obviously they wouldn't need to score as many points and maybe they come out and they win that series. But Russ is going to be who he is. Like, we're 10 years deep into this. There's a level of complaining and criticism as it involves Russ where I'm just like, yo, we've been here already. We know what the deal is on this. We get it. I resist the idea that you just can't win with him when we have seen a team that has done a lot of winning while having him. And the argument is, yeah, well, they had Kevin Durant. I mean, okay. Right? So it doesn't count if you have good players with you? Because the way that you win with Russ is get better players around him. Hey, man, go look around the West and go look at the pairings that people have, stuff like that, like a Russell Westbrook, Paul George pairing. I mean, think about this with the NBA. There was a time where we looked at teams that won championships and we said, you've got to have 2 top 50 all-time caliber players in order to win an NBA championship. Now we're at a point where you got to have 2 guys in that zone to simply compete for a championship. Like, that was what the change that you really got from the Miami Heat situation. You really need, like, 2 such guys now to compete for a championship. It got us to where the Warriors were, and the Warriors had the Kevin Durant piece and the Cavs and everything. Everybody's trying to build these squads. The Oklahoma City squad is not one that has such a level of talent that you're looking at it like, yeah, y'all should win. Like, the reason that Oklahoma City lost that series against Utah was not because you can't win with Russell Westbrook. It was in large part because they just didn't have enough. Now, you can say the Russ ain't doing enough to maximize who the other guys are, perhaps. Or, in some cases, maximizing what the other guys are sometimes means taking it on yourself. What Russ has got to figure out the line, of course, is just how much self-taking over is required. But you're not going to get anywhere in this if all you ever do is just look at any loss. You just be like, see, that's the problem. You can't lose with Westbrook. Because once you can't win with Westbrook, once you made a decision and you look at a dude and you just like, yo, can't win with that guy, then anytime they don't win, that's where you're going to put the blame. Anytime. That's where it's going to go. It winds up answering every question, no matter what it is that happens, if you've just made the decision that you can't win with that guy. And again, I think it's understandable and reasonable to be like, wait, man, 43 shots. That's way too many shots. Who's supposed to get the rest of them? You let me know. Who's supposed to get the rest of those shots? Because Paul George got 16 of them, and he only made 2. And you know you got to be pretty damn focused on putting the blame on Russell Westbrook when a dude refers to himself as playoff P coming into the series. And he stinks it up in the last game. And you don't say a word to him about that. You never let James Harden slide for 2 for 16 in an elimination game. You would never do that, no matter who was on the team with him. You would never let him slide for that. Hell, Russ is such an asbestos shield for everybody that a guy that everybody loves to blame for stuff, Melo, who out here looking washed all season long, he hadn't really had to answer for anything. In fact, after it was over, after it was all over, Carmelo Anthony gave some quotes after his exit interview that made people be like, ooh, what's going on here? What are you saying here, Melo? Like, here's one of them.
I'm not sacrificing no bench role, so that's out the question. As far as sacrificing, I don't even like to talk about finances and the economics of the game of basketball. When that time will come.
Melo is going into his 16th year in the league, and Melo is telling you that he ain't going to the bench, right? You know who the last guy was I heard say that in those terms? Allen Iverson. And the year he said, I ain't going to the bench, was basically the last year he was his last year in the NBA, more or less. And I get it from an ego standpoint. Remember at the beginning of the year, they asked Melo something about playing on the bench, and he screamed out, yo, they asked me about coming off the bench. He refuses the idea and notion of coming off the bench. Now, I think that Melo was right, because Melo also said he felt like there was no plan to integrate him into the offense, that he was just kind of there, that they hadn't figured out what to do with it, which is an indictment of their head coach, who also skates on a lot of these issues. But that was his view. He's like, yeah, man, I ain't coming off the bench. I'm not going to do that. Yo, man, what you going to do if they tell you that you're coming off the bench? Like, what are you going to do? Because Carmelo says, I'm not really that comfortable in the catch and shoot role. The best basketball any of us ever see Carmelo Anthony play is in the Olympics, where a whole lot of his game is catch and shoot stuff. A whole lot of it. It may not be the way that he wanted to play necessarily, and he did certainly make a level of sacrifice while playing with this team. But I don't know how you can hear that dude talking in that way and still blame everything on Russell Westbrook. I don't see how you can see Paul George shoot 2 for 16 in that game and still blame everything on Russell Westbrook. I don't know how it is that you can't see that one thing the Thunder doesn't have is athletic bigs. They got Steven Adams, who is more of a traditional type of center. They don't really have bigs that can step outside, right? They don't have like that caliber of guy. How is it that everything goes on Russell Westbrook? Now, you can say that Westbrook's solution to overcoming some of these problems is too much of, I got this myself. But at least acknowledge that some of this is an attempt to overcome some of the problems that exist on that roster. And I don't exactly know how they're going to fix it. Because if Paul George doesn't re-sign, and I have no idea if he's going to, Melo's probably going to opt in because ain't nobody walking away for $20-some-odd million. Paul George were not to come back or re-sign, how are they supposed to replace? Ain't nobody trying to go live in Oklahoma City, dog. Ain't nobody trying to sign no deal to go do that. Not unless you got their bird right, he's going to pay them more than everybody else. Nobody's trying to do that. So what are they supposed to do? I don't know. But whatever they got to do, like it or not, they're going to have to do it around Russell Westbrook. And all the building has to be done in consideration of Russell Westbrook. By the way, speaking of Russell Westbrook, I'd like you guys to think about something with our good buddy Donovan Mitchell. And Donovan Mitchell is a lot of fun to watch. Donovan Mitchell is a very, very, very good player. Donovan Mitchell in that game against the Rockets had 21 points on 22 shots. In fact, let's go through and look at some more of these, the game log situation with Donovan Mitchell. I just want to illustrate something to you that you may not have considered. Now, in game 5 against Oklahoma City, he had, it's game 6 rather, 38 on 26 shots. That's good. The game before that, 23 points on 22 shots. The game before that, 33 points on 28 shots. The game before that, 22 points on 20 shots. Before that, 28 points on 25 shots. Before that, 27 points on 22 shots. Hey man, that's not great. I think that we could all agree there. That is not great. That is not what anyone would term as being efficient. Donovan Mitchell, as things stand right now, is a volume scorer. And here's the thing about volume scorers. We like them when they're young. We enjoy them when they're young, because when guys are young, we really just evaluate them on, wow, he's really talented. Wow, I really enjoy watching him play basketball. We don't view them in the context of you can or cannot win with that guy. Want to think of another volume scorer that we loved when he was young? Melo. We love them when they are young. How long is it going to go with Donovan Mitchell? Because Donovan Mitchell's thing is out there is putting up a whole lot of shots. Not all of them are good, by the way. It's a whole lot of shots. Everybody loves him as a result, at least as of right now. So I do think if you're a cat like Donovan Mitchell, look over there at Russell Westbrook. You're not the same player as Russell Westbrook. They will treat you like you're Russell Westbrook. The second that this gets weak, they will, right? And he's going to look up and be like, but I'm just doing the same things that I did when y'all said I was the bomb. Yep. Utah is probably going to get beat. I don't know how quickly they're going to get beat by Houston, but I think they're going to get beat by Houston. So they go out there and they're going to get beaten by Houston. We're going to talk about, man, this team really has a future. They really, really do. And maybe Mitchell is going to go and make some tweaks to this game and it'll become a more efficient game, perhaps. But as it stands right now, his game is the inefficient game that everybody swears they can't stand. He's just new. That's it. He's just new. And even Westbrook, to a degree, while people would have some level of blame for him at different points for the lack of success that the Thunder had, when he was new, people loved him too. And then when it was charming that he was the only guy on Oklahoma City that could get anything done last year, we found it to be charming too. But hey, man, when people think you should be doing more, they will expect more. And when they expect more, yeah, everything you did that they love will suddenly become something that they hate.
We know you can't be on top of all the news and information of the day. No need for the social media feeds. We got you. Now, if you haven't heard.
All right, Bo, our first story of the day comes from the world of music.
My name is Rodney Carmichael, and I'm a hip-hop writer and correspondent for NPR Music. I wrote about Kanye West and the backlash surrounding a lot of his unabashed support over the past week or two of anti-black views and political ideology. Now, I titled this piece "For Colored Boys Who've Considered Career Suicide When Good Music Wasn't Enough." As you know, Kanye tweeted out a photo wearing a Make America Great Again hat last week. And he said he has support for pundits like Candace Owens, who has said a lot of really disparaging things about justice movements like Black Lives Matter. He couched all of this in what he likes to call free thought philosophy. He says that black people should not only be Democrats. Then on Friday night, he released 2 new songs. One was pretty much a straight troll called Lift Yourself, and the other called Ye versus the People found him trading bars with T.I. in an attempt to convince us, meaning the people, why we should love Donald Trump. Now, he admits himself that he's not very politically astute, and he really just thinks that black people are too monolithic. So whether or not Kanye is trolling us or whether he has some bigger agenda or end game in mind, like running for president, which he does allude to in the song, it really seems like he's validating views that could potentially have serious negative impact on what's really his most loyal fan base, that being everyday black folk.
Now, the part that's interesting there, I don't know if everyday black folk is Kanye's base at this point. I went to that Life of Pablo tour, and let me tell you who I did not see in the house. Everyday black folk. Let me tell you what else I didn't see at the Life of Pablo tour. Anybody my age. I don't know if I've ever felt older at a rap concert. Kanye, 40 years old, and I'm there like, why am I surrounded by these children? I also messed up and got those floor seats, except they're not seats. You were just on the floor, so you're just running around all the time and everything else. All right, so the thing with Kanye and what he is doing right now, to me, is on a couple of levels just kind of bizarre. One, he's trying the love everybody approach, right? And that is definitely what he's got going here. The dude said that he's going to make the cover of his album, The Plastic Surgeon, that he says killed his mother because he wants to demonstrate that everybody can, that you can love anybody. And then if you then extend that to Donald Trump, it's like, oh, okay, I see what it is that you are talking about here. My problem with him is not even so much who he has decided to say that he loves as a politician. That's kind of whatever. My thing is he's out here on some, I just feel like I'm a free thinker and you guys won't allow me to think freely. Ain't nobody trying to tell you to not think freely. We telling you not to do stupid stuff. And you have this unfortunate tendency to do what most of us would consider to be stupid stuff. But anybody that's telling you they patting Kanye on the back for being a free thinker, here's how you know they're not telling the truth. It's very simple. The argument behind Kanye being a free thinker is really primarily coming from white people on the right and their belief that black people are under some mind control because of the overwhelming preponderance of black people who vote for Democrats. Okay, so the idea is if you do not align yourself with the Democratic Party, then you yourself are a free thinker and more black people need to do that. Okay, I got you. You want to know whose views are not in line with the Democratic Party and is a black person? Colin Kaepernick. That's who. His views are not in line with the Democratic Party at all. Any of these people calling Kanye a free thinker? Have you seen any of them call Colin Kaepernick a free thinker? No, because don't nobody care if you're a free thinker. People only care if you're a free thinker to leave you free to think about the things that they want to. Nobody's out here like, hey, we just want to register people to vote so that they can vote for anybody. No, man, they try to register people to vote for the people that they want to vote for. Nobody's out here trying to make it harder for them in the cause that they want just in some egalitarian way. No, that's not what it is. So get out of here with this. Hey, man, he's just a free thinker, and I don't understand why y'all won't let him be free to think. Hey, man, people are free to think that he's a moron. That's free, too.
Is this not similar to the Kyrie Irving flat earth theory?
at least on the Kyrie Irving flat earth theory, there is no room for interpretation on that one, right? Like that's Kyrie versus the facts. There is no room for that, but it is a similar idea. You guys just keep telling me that, that something wrong with me because I think something differently than you. No. It's not that people have a problem with you thinking differently than them. They have a problem specifically with the one thing that you think. That's a difference.
Story number 2 of the day comes from the transportation industry.
Hi, this is Felix Salmon from Slate.com and Slate Money, and if you think that Ford is a car maker, you're basically wrong. Ford is a truck maker, and specifically Ford is an F-Series maker, and those F-Series trucks are amazing. They sell for $50,000, something like that a piece, and Ford sells one every 42 seconds, and it makes $13,000 on each one. And sensibly enough, if you're a capitalist company, what you're going to do is you're going to do more of that, and you're going to do less of making cars. That's the big Ford announcement this week. They're basically getting out of the car making business because they make the Taurus and the Fiesta and all of that kind of stuff, but they just don't sell as well as the Civic and the Accord and the Corolla and all of those Japanese cars. And even if they did, they wouldn't make nearly as much money on them. So what Ford is doing is it's doubling down on trucks. It's becoming the truck maker which really it has always been, and in doing so, it's taking a leaf out of Steve Jobs' book. When he came back to Apple in 1997, he cut the number of Macs that Apple sold down to 4. This is capitalism. You do what you're good at, and you do it as much as you can, and you don't do what you're bad at, and so Ford is no longer a car maker. Sorry.
A couple things that I found to be interesting in reading that story, one of them being that the Ford Fiesta is the number 4 selling automobile in Europe. Yeah, who knew? You know why? Because them little fuel economical cars, our American spirits ain't really trying to hear nothing of that. We're like, man, that thing go vroom. Because if that thing don't go vroom, I'm not really here for it. So yeah, you may not want a Ford Fiesta. They'd a bomb over there, how they say it, across the pond. I also did not realize, that the F-150 was costing that much money these days. But I did not realize that, they were the number 1 truck seller. I thought the Chevy was doing a little more than that. So they've decided in the U.S. that all they're going to do is sell trucks. I mean, I do suppose that makes a measure of sense. It's just one of those things that's got to make you feel a little bit old, right? Like Oldsmobile doesn't make cars anymore. Ford is not going to be making cars anymore. It's like, hey, people going to try to hit you with that Buy American. What's it going to be for the Americans to buy in that same circumstance? And by the way, don't forget, if Ford's not selling cars in the U.S., that means the Ford's not going to make cars in the U.S., and that means that people who are making those cars hope they can find some money making something else.
Story number 3 of the day comes from the tech industry.
My name is Haley Tsukayama, technology reporter at The Washington Post. Amazon made some changes to its voice assistant, Alexa, adding an optional and free kid-focused mode called Free Time on Alexa that will have the assistant praise children for asking for things nicely. Amazon created what it calls the magic word feature after hearing from parents who were worried about how their kids barked orders at the voice assistant and wanted a way for Alexa to acknowledge politeness. To create the feature, Amazon spoke to several child development experts who said it was better to have Alexa praise kids for being polite rather than scold them for not asking. So your voice assistant shouldn't say, "What's the magic word?" but should rather say, "Thank you for asking nicely." Kids are a huge focus for Amazon, which sees aiming products to kids as an important part of commanding the smart home market. The mode also includes more parental controls, such as the ability to set times when your kids can't talk to Alexa, such as bedtime.
Hold on, so let me get this straight, just so I understand this. The researchers say that it is better to praise kids for being polite rather than tell them to say please. Gabe, did I hear that right?
It sounds right. It sounds about right. Kids don't want to be told things anymore. They only want positive reinforcement, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have kids, so I don't really understand the strategies that y'all are using, but we got a long way to go before we get to a point where I'm going to stop telling kids what you're supposed to say. All right, because I find that these youngsters these days are really not that big on please, and I'm big on please from adults. I just it don't cost you very much. Just say please. I'm big on it. So I find it interesting that they want to use Alexa to reinforce good manners, because I had thought about that having these things and, you bark these commands at them and what effect they would have on the youngsters as they talk to other people. But they need to have the Alexa Bomani edition that's going to be like, what'd you just say? What did you not say? What did you not say? As opposed to just praising them for being polite. What if them bad little kids are never polite? Then you never get around to praising them. They don't even know the goodness of the praise that comes around. Nah. But I can only imagine how disrespectfully them kids be talking to Alexa. Alexa one time is going to be like, you say that one more time and I'm going to take off my belt.
Are we going to get a different version of Alexa? Instead of Alexa, it's going to be
Yeah, Big Al. That's what it's going to be. Yeah, you can talk like that to Alexa. You can mess with Big Al, see how that works out. Also, by the way, shout out to Haley. Second week in a row that she's here on If You Haven't Heard.
Shout out to Haley, indeed.
Hey, this is Bomani. You have reached the right time voicemail. Say whatever you want. Get creative with it. But this is your place to talk back to the show. So talk back. Peace.
All right, Bomani, we put out for an Ask Me Anything for today's show. And certainly you get some interesting responses when you put out an Ask Me Anything. You basically allow for people to say whatever they want, number one. But then number two, not have any sort of filter when it comes to asking a particular type of question. So you get a whole range of stuff here. Our first question.
My question is, do you think Jay-Z and Beyonce actually love each other?
Wow. Okay. This is a dangerous game to play because, I don't really know these people like that. But I absolutely believe that they love each other. When Beyonce did that Made in America show and they showed Jay-Z over there dancing to her music, no. They love each other. There is no doubt that they love each other. I'm not necessarily sure that they like living with each other anymore, but hey man, first of all, Jay-Z gotta love her, cause when that Lemonade video came out on HBO, where Jay-Z was there in that white undershirt looking like a sack of dirty socks. You remember that? You gotta love somebody to embarrass yourself in that way. Their whole business been put out there for the whole world to see. Yeah, you only do that if you love that woman. Yes, they absolutely 100% do love each other. That I believe. They just don't seem to really have that much fun with each other, and I am not convinced that this tour is not a matter of Beyonce wanted to go on tour, but she don't feel like she can leave that dude at the house no more. That's kind of sort of where I am. He did that one verse in that Coachella set, and I was like, yep, she's just like, nah, you coming with me. Anybody seen Jay? Where Jay? Anybody seen Jay? That's how I feel like their situation is.
I wasn't sure about using that question, but I was really interested in hearing what your response would be, so I figured I'd have him ask it anyways.
Yeah, I see and feel the love between them. I do.
All right, here's the second question.
Hey, Bomani, what do you think is an appropriate hobby for a grown man?
I mean, I collect records. That is my hobby. I enjoy collecting records. I enjoy going to shows at, record stores. I went to a record fair in Brooklyn over the weekend. I think that kind of stuff is appropriate. Does that really count as a hobby? Honestly, I feel like once you got some bread, pretty much any hobby is appropriate if you're the one that's paying for it. Video games. I'm still there. Y'all can go ahead and play video games. That's cool. And I think it's more like what hobbies are inappropriate if you are a grown man. So game day, was it the Pokemon cards? Do I have that right? People still doing that?
I think so. I feel like they had that Pokemon Go craze with the app about a year ago, and it brought out a lot of people who were, big Pokemon fans, but now everybody was kind of into that thing, so it let them kind of come out of the closet on that a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like that is perhaps not so much an appropriate hobby for a grown man, but I am here for you guys to do whatever it is that y'all want to do, as long as it does not cost me any money, and I don't necessarily have to do it with you.
All right, here's the third question.
Yo, Bo, got a question. It's been a minute since we had the Can't Go Back All-Stars, and this being the NBA playoffs, I was wondering if you could give us your top 5 CGB All-Stars. Peace.
All right, so are we talking about top 5 that are still in the playoffs, or are we talking about top 5 overall? Because I feel like it's a little more fun to try to make the top 5 that are actually still in the playoffs right now, because we lost some CGB All-Stars, with the end of the last round. For example, Brad Beal and John Wall, quietly, CGB All-Stars, but we lost both of them. Terry Rozier, CGB All-Star. As I told you earlier in the show, Youngstown, Ohio, stand up. That would count as a CGB All-Star. I think that Marcus Smart, I've read some stories about him. I don't know if he's an all-star necessarily, but I know he can't go back. Gabe, what do you think about my man Joe Ingles? I wonder about Joe Ingles. I don't think he want to go back to Australia, do you?
I think he's probably living a pretty good existence with the Jazz and in Utah. You can't say that a lot about playing for the Jazz.
That is true. I think that there is something there. I think there's a point there. Do the Sixers have any can't go back all-stars? Because I mean, like Embiid could be one just in terms of like weight class and stuff like that. But I don't know if he counts. Oh, the Rockets, I forgot. Rockets got PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker is not going back. Under no circumstance whatsoever will PJ Tucker be returning from that which he came. No, just so you know. And Gabe, don't forget, he's in the suit for most games, but your boy Perk over there for the Cavs. Did you know he was back in the league?
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
I follow Kendrick Perkins' story pretty closely ever since people started talking about him being the whisperer, whether it's the KD whisperer, the LeBron whisperer. He's such a good locker room guy, good teammate. I wasn't aware that he was trying to get back in the league, and then he got back in the league, and I haven't really seen him play that much.
No, he's there. And oh, by the way, let us not forget Serge Ibaka. Serge Ibaka has seen things that none of us have seen. Hey, these cats out here talk about the rough neighborhoods that they're from. Go ask Serge Ibaka what he saw in his civil war in his home nation of the Republic of Congo. Go ask him. I believe that. So I think we got 5 there, right? We got Smart, we got Rozier, we got Ibaka, we got Perk, and I had one more that I've already forgotten, but we got him.
Ingles.
Ingles made.
JJ Redick is a good one too. You know he doesn't want to go back to the Clippers.
Oh yeah, well there's that, right? Like he does not want to go back to there, but see, I don't think he got no problem going back from whence he came. That's the one. They don't want to go back to the crib. Yeah, there are things that they saw when they were there that they want no parts of, and they will do anything to not go back to those places. I feel like the Rockets got one more. PJ Tucker, dude, that's a real one, man. Like that's one of those I feel like it's kind of understated, but because he plays more of a small forward role in the NBA now, but he's like a 6'4" power forward type. Those dudes, they can't can't go back. And Gerald Green, even though he's back home in Houston, he ain't going back to what Houston was. I tell you that right now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us here on The Right Time. We do this here 2 days a week. And thank you to Rodney Carmichael. He writes about hip-hop for NPR for his story on Kanye West. Thank you to Felix Salmon of the Slate Money podcast for telling us about what's going on with Ford and them not selling cars in North America. And thank you again to Haley Tsukayama of the Washington Post telling us about Amazon's Alexa trying to teach your kids to stop being so disrespectful. Gabe Bassane handles everything on production. My man, thank you. Remember, rate and review us at the iTunes store. Download the podcast. We're at the ESPN app. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're all kinds of places for fine podcasts and giving away. Be sure to check us out, and we will talk to you guys in a couple of days. Take it easy.
Thanks for checking out The Right Time with Bomani Jones podcast.
You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Right Time
with Bomani Jones.